after we're done here. I don't want to be staged. So, what is this giant sign? I've done a little bit of research into Craby Joe's. I've done a little bit of research into the parcel, basically, in order to find out more about the landscape of what that is. As we understand it, Craby Joe's existed from 1933 until 2007 Christmas Eve. I was there on the closing night with some of you, actually, taking fantastic pictures and crying in my beer over the loss of that place. It is famous for Barfly, the movie Barfly itself was a character in the movie. The sign is prominent in the film, at the beginning and at the very end. But it's also got ties to Los Angeles literary history, especially with Charles Bukowski. I see it written on your shirt. Very good. There's not too much that I can say about the business itself, but I do want to read a few pieces of history on the property that you might find interesting. I was able to do a little address search back into the historic Los Angeles Times. And way back in 1892, it was residential. This entire neighborhood was not commercial. It was basically 1- and 2-family homes, sometimes with a business on the ground floor, residential above. Way back in 1892, the address of Craby Joe's was, it was a saloon. And according to this article on vigorous protests against increasing saloons on Main Street, they had this to say. The businessmen on the street state that the class of men who frequent the numerous saloons on the east side of Main Street drive ladies from that side of the street and they cross over, diminishing the businesses on the east side of Main Street. So we actually did have saloon issues in 1892 with Main Street. We have 8 saloons on the east side of Main Street. And the tax collector reported that number 656 South Main Street had a delinquent saloon license. So back then there were issues even still. By 1894, we had a doctor at that address. The doctor was Dr. C. Edgar Smith. He specialized in varicose veins and ruptures. But he also stated that diseases of women are skillfully treated. I'll just leave that as 1898, there is actually some bland history that took place there too. There were many different fraternal orders in Los Angeles at the turn of the last century, and in 1898 we had things like the Ladies of the Maccabees, the Order of the Eastern Star, Daughters of the Golden West, Woodmen of the World, but we also had the Grand Army of the Republic. And Dr. Wilder, Mr. and Mrs. Wilder, made their home at 656 South Main Street. And of course, what we find is they hosted the Grand Army of the Republic at their residence, and the Corps presented them with a punch bowl. Some of it's not all that great. No. Of course, we have this wonderful instance. In 1903, a man who resided at that address on Main Street was arrested for assaulting a 10-year-old girl. I won't get into it, but it's in full detail of his assault on a 10-year-old girl at that address. If you want it, I'll just hand it to you later. A few months later in 1903, we find one last instance of history before the place actually was, the residential was demolished and we have the current building in the 1930s. We have a brute assaults his mistress because she refuses to support him. Made a frantic beast by the refusal of his mistress to resume her business of supporting him. George Walsh, a laborer, viciously assaulted Ella Powers yesterday morning at a lodging house, South Main. For 2 years, the woman has kept Walsh in clothes and pin money, but she got tired of the job 2 days ago and left him to rustle for himself. Yesterday morning, Walsh went to the woman's room and ordered her to go with him. His aforetime mistress refused, and Walsh picked up a table knife and jabbed her in the side. Fortunately, the corset steels prevented any wounds. Walsh then struck the woman on the side of the head, afflicting a gash about an inch long. The force of the blow was so great that he broke his knife. As Powers' woman dropped from the blow, Walsh kicked her in the mouth with such force that she was rendered unconscious. He brought his leg back for another kick when the landlady entered. Walsh then quieted down. The landlady sent for police immediately, but before arrival, the patrol wagon came. Blah, blah, blah. When the police arrived, the alleged officer and Walsh were nowhere to be found. The women's injuries were treated at the receiving hospital, and she said she would not prosecute. So that's the tidbits of information that I could get on the property itself. No, not a lot on Craby Joe's. I think many of its stories just remain unpublished. With that, I think we shall celebrate Craby Joe's, not with booze, but with a lighting. Let's get that sign lit up so we can all drop jaw and worship at the new home of Craby Joe's.
Yay!
Now, Kim, before we disperse, Kim has something to say because I can't explain it as well as she can. There is a disparity in the coloring of this sign. You'll notice that it's pink and blue except for the Y, which is blue blue.
If you look at it,
It is blue blue blue.
there's a blue outline
There's a blue. Oh,
and a
yeah.
blue inner.
You'll need to explain it.
Okay.
There's actually a technical reason why we see this. It's accidental, but it's just been carried. The accident has been carried forward.
If you notice the sign before it was lit, it looked white, and that's a white phosphor coating on the interior. And what makes that a color is a drop of mercury in the tube. But the mercury has to be in combination with argon gas, not neon gas. Sometimes, well, it actually does work with neon too, but typically it's used with argon mercury to get blue and blue combinations or greens. So what happened here is, we think, that it was supposed to be pink because the pink is obtained through a tube called BL55, which can also go blue. It can be pink with neon or blue with argon mercury. So someone accidentally put a drop of mercury in the outer rim, so that part that is blue, that should be pink, is blue. So that's what happened. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. It makes sense to me. And I would like to add one more thing, because there are some people who talk about Craby Joe's, it should have two B's. And the rumor of this sign is that Craby Joe's was an error on the sign company's part. That it was supposed to be Crazy Joe's, the Z was somehow flipped upside down and the Z became a B and it became Craby Joe's from Crazy Joe's. A lot of folks are like, oh, that's just ridiculous, it's impossible, it should have been fixed, that's not right. Well, it is possible, quite frankly. There is a restaurant in Ashland, Oregon that goes by the name of Omar's. It's a wonderful steakhouse, it goes back to the 1940s, a great steakhouse with a beautiful neon sign. Their interior theme is pyramids and camels. It's Omar's Steakhouse, but it was a mistake. The neon sign for this Ashland, Oregon business was supposed to be Omer's, O-M-E-R, but the sign company thought, well, that must be a mistake. It's Omar, and they just made it with an A, installed it, and they went, oh, well, we're going to go with the pyramid theme. So Omer's Steakhouse became Omar's Steakhouse because of a mistake on the sign side. Even though I think it's kind of crazy ridiculous that a B and a Z could be switched, that is the rumor that we are going to stick to. So Crazy Joe's became Craby Joe's because of a mistake of a sign company. And to go along with that, we have a blue neon Y because of a mistake at the sign company. And the blue has just been carried through as a natural mistake and kind of is appropriate for Craby Joe's. For those of us who would knock back around or two, it's just kind of appropriate that something would be a little off. So, I pay homage. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.